When helping becomes courage. The hidden story behind the Good Samaritan Law. A man collapses on a busy street. Cars slow down. People stare. Phones come out. But nobody moves. Not because they are cruel. Not because they do not care. They are afraid. Afraid that helping might destroy their lives. This fear is exactly why Good Samaritan laws exist. These laws were created to protect ordinary people who step forward in emergencies. People who perform CPR, help accident victims, or rush a stranger to the hospital. The laws say that if someone helps in good faith, they should not be punished for trying to save a life. At first glance, the idea sounds simple. Of course we should help people in danger. But history shows that helping others has not always been easy. Sometimes kindness comes with a cost. The story that inspired the name. The phrase Good Samaritan comes from one of the most famous stories in the Bible. In the story, a traveler is beaten by robbers and left injured on the side of the road. Several people pass him without helping. Then a Samaritan, a person from a group that was disliked at the time, stops, treats the wounded man, and carries him to safety. The message was powerful. True goodness is shown through action. Modern Good Samaritan laws were built on this idea. The first major law of this kind appeared in California in 1959. Doctors were worried that if they helped strangers during emergencies, they could be sued if something went wrong. Even life-saving CPR could accidentally break ribs. Lawmakers realized something dangerous. Fear was stopping people from helping. Soon, many states and countries adopted similar protections. The night nobody helped. One of the most shocking cases connected to the rise of these laws happened in New York City in 1964. A young woman named Kitty Genovese was attacked outside her apartment building. Early news reports claimed that many neighbors heard her cries, but failed to call the police or help her quickly. The story horrified America. Psychologists later called this the bystander effect, the strange human tendency where people are less likely to help when many others are present. Everyone assumes somebody else will act, while later investigations revealed that some neighbors did try to help, and at least one woman comforted Kitty Genovese as she died. The story, as it was originally reported, shocked the public imagination and became a lasting symbol of silence, hesitation, and social indifference. Even today, the name Kitty Genovese remains connected to difficult questions about fear, responsibility, and the human tendency to wait for someone else to move first. The Chinese case that changed a nation. Perhaps no story shows the fear of helping more dramatically than the famous Peng Yu case in China. In 2006, a young man named Peng Yu saw an elderly woman named Xu Shoulan fall near a bus stop in Nanjing. He helped her up, took her to the hospital, and even paid part of her medical bill. Then something unbelievable happened. The woman accused Peng Yu of causing her fall. The court eventually ruled against him, arguing that no one would help unless they felt guilty. The decision shocked the country. Suddenly, helping strangers seemed dangerous. People began asking themselves terrifying questions. What if I help someone and get blamed? What if kindness ruins my future? The emotional impact was enormous. Many Chinese citizens became afraid to help strangers in public emergencies. Videos later appeared online showing injured people lying on streets, while crowds simply watched. Years later, leaked court-related information suggested that Peng Yu may actually have collided with the elderly woman before helping her. But by then, the damage to public trust had already been done. What mattered socially was not only whether Peng Yu was innocent or guilty, it was the public perception created by the case, the frightening belief that helping a stranger could lead to legal disaster. That perception changed behavior across an entire society. In one widely discussed incident, an elderly man fell at a crosswalk, while drivers and pedestrians hesitated to help him. Some later admitted they feared being falsely accused. The fear became so widespread that some people advised rescuers to record videos before helping victims just to protect themselves. Eventually, Chinese authorities introduced Good Samaritan protections in several regions and later expanded them nationwide. The laws were meant to rebuild public trust and encourage compassion again. But rebuilding trust is harder than writing laws. A child named Wang Yue. In 2011, another heartbreaking tragedy shook China. A 2-year-old girl named Wang Yue wandered into a street in Foshan. A van struck her and drove away. Then another vehicle hit her again. Security cameras captured something even more painful. People walked past the injured child without helping. Some looked, some slowed down, but many continued on their way. Finally, a garbage collector rushed forward and carried the little girl to safety. Sadly, she later died from her injuries. The video spread across the world. Many people blamed the coldness of society, but others pointed to fear. Fear created by earlier cases, where helpers had been punished instead of praised. The tragedy forced difficult conversations about morality, law, and human responsibility. When rescue leads to a lawsuit. Even in the United States, helping can become legally complicated. One famous case happened in California in 2004. After a car crash, a woman named Lisa Torti pulled her friend Alexandra Van Horn from a damaged vehicle because she feared it might explode. Van Horn later became paralyzed and sued Torti, arguing that moving her had worsened her injuries. At first, the California Supreme Court ruled that the state's Good Samaritan protections only applied to medical care, not general rescue efforts. Public reaction was immediate. People feared the ruling would discourage rescue attempts during emergencies. What if someone died because bystanders became too afraid to act? In response, California lawmakers changed the law to broaden protection for rescuers acting in good faith. The case revealed a painful truth: emergencies are messy. People rarely have perfect information or professional training. Sometimes rescuers make mistakes while trying to save lives. The law must decide whether fear of mistakes should outweigh the value of compassion. Do we owe strangers our help? One of the most misunderstood parts of the Good Samaritan Law is this. In many places, the law protects people who help, but does not require them to help. That distinction matters. In most American states, a bystander who walks past an injured stranger usually cannot be prosecuted simply for doing nothing. The law is largely passive. It says, if you choose to help, we will try to protect you. But in several European countries, the idea is very different. In France, Germany, Finland, and some other nations, citizens may face penalties if they ignore a person in serious danger without at least calling for help. These are often called duty to rescue laws. The difference reveals two competing visions of society. One view says compassion should remain voluntary. A good deed only has moral meaning if it is freely chosen. The other view argues that living in a civilized society creates obligations. Roads, hospitals, police protection, and public safety all depend on mutual responsibility. Under this philosophy, helping a stranger in mortal danger is not heroic. It is part of the social contract. The debate becomes deeply uncomfortable when fear enters the picture. What if helping puts the rescuer in danger? What if the victim later files a lawsuit? What if stepping forward risks arrest, financial ruin, or violence? Modern Good Samaritan laws exist. Because lawmakers recognized a troubling reality, people often hesitate, not because they are heartless, but because they are afraid. And fear can quietly dissolve the invisible bonds that hold a society together. The opioid crisis changed the meaning of Good Samaritan. In recent years, Good Samaritan laws have expanded far beyond car crashes and CPR. The opioid crisis forced lawmakers to confront a new kind of emergency. Across the United States, thousands of overdose victims died not because help was unavailable, but because friends nearby were too afraid to call 911. Many feared arrest for drug possession. Imagine the terrible choice facing a frightened teenager or friend in that moment. Call for help and possibly face criminal charges, or stay silent and watch someone die. Lawmakers realized that fear itself had become deadly. As a result, many states passed overdose-related Good Samaritan laws. These laws often provide limited immunity from arrest or prosecution for minor drug possession offenses. When someone calls emergency services during an overdose situation, this represented a major evolution in the philosophy of Good Samaritan protections. Originally, these laws focused on protecting people from liability for physical mistakes made during rescue efforts, such as accidentally injuring someone while performing CPR. But the opioid era introduced a different kind of protection from legal vulnerability itself. The goal was no longer only to protect rescuers from lawsuits, it was to remove barriers that prevented people from seeking help at all. In other words, lawmakers came to believe that saving a human life mattered, more than punishing low-level drug possession in the middle of a medical crisis. The shift reveals something profound about modern society. Sometimes the greatest danger is not malice but hesitation.
What the laws actually protect. Good Samaritan laws are not magical shields. In most places, they only protect people who act reasonably and honestly. If someone intentionally causes harm, acts recklessly, or performs dangerous procedures far beyond their training, the law may not protect them. For example, breaking a rib during CPR is usually considered an acceptable risk during life-saving efforts. But performing a complex surgery without medical training would not be protected. The key idea is good faith. The law recognizes that emergencies happen fast. Ordinary people cannot always make perfect decisions under pressure. But there is another important complication: protections vary widely depending on the state or country. In the United States especially, Good Samaritan laws are largely created at the state level, meaning the exact protections, duties, and legal standards can differ significantly from one jurisdiction to another. What a reasonable person should actually do. Good Samaritan laws sound comforting in theory, but in a real emergency, panic can make people freeze. Legal experts often return to one important phrase: the reasonable person standard. The question courts usually ask is simple: did the rescuer behave the way a reasonable person would under the circumstances? For ordinary citizens, several practical guidelines can help. 1. Check for consent. If the person is conscious and responsive, ask permission before helping. Simple words matter. Can I help you? I know basic first aid. Is that okay? But emergencies are not always neat or orderly. If a person is unconscious, confused, or unable to respond, the law generally assumes implied consent. Courts recognize that most people would want life-saving help in such situations. 2. Call emergency services immediately. One of the smartest things a bystander can do is call 911 immediately. This creates an official record showing that the rescuer acted in good faith and attempted to involve trained professionals as quickly as possible. It also shifts the situation from chaos toward organized medical care. In many emergencies, simply calling for help may save more lives than dramatic physical intervention. 3. Stay within your training. Good Samaritan laws protect reasonable actions, not reckless improvisation. A person trained in CPR should perform CPR. A person trained in first aid can apply pressure to bleeding wounds. But attempting advanced medical procedures without training may cross the line into gross negligence. The law does not expect ordinary people to become emergency surgeons on the sidewalk. It expects sincerity, caution, and common sense. 4. Do not abandon the victim. Once someone begins helping, leaving too early can create legal and moral complications. In some situations, abruptly abandoning an injured person before professional help arrives may expose a rescuer to liability that did not exist at the beginning. This does not mean rescuers must endanger themselves indefinitely. Personal safety still matters, but if possible, remaining with the victim until emergency responders arrive is generally considered both legally wise and morally responsible. In the end, Good Samaritan laws do not ask ordinary citizens to become heroes. They simply try to protect people who choose humanity over indifference. The real purpose of the law. At its heart, the Good Samaritan law is not really about lawsuits. It is about fear. Fear can freeze people. It can silence conscience. It can turn crowded streets into lonely places. The law tries to send a message stronger than fear. If you try to help someone honestly, society should stand beside you, not punish you. Because one day, any of us could become the person lying on the pavement, waiting for a stranger to decide whether our life is worth the risk. And in that moment, the most important thing in the world may be whether someone chooses to stop. A quiet choice. Most heroes never wear uniforms. Sometimes they are teenagers calling 911. Sometimes they are drivers stopping beside a wrecked car. Sometimes they are strangers kneeling beside someone who collapsed in the rain. They do not know the person they are helping. They simply choose humanity over hesitation. The Good Samaritan Law exists because society understands something precious. A civilization survives not only through technology, wealth, or power, but through ordinary people willing to help each other when it matters most.
It's time to study new words in context. 1. Public perception. Definition: what most people think or believe about a person, event, or issue. Example: public perception of the case changed after new information was released. 2. Pedestrian. Definition: a person who is walking, especially on a street or sidewalk. Example: a pedestrian stopped to help the injured man. 3. Complicated. Definition: difficult to understand because it has many parts or problems. Example: the legal case was more complicated than it first appeared. 4. Bystander. Definition: a person who is near an event but is not directly involved in it. Example: several bystanders watched the accident from a distance. 5. Outweigh. Definition: to be more important or greater than something else. Example: the benefits of helping others outweigh the risks. 6. Passive. Definition: not taking action, allowing things to happen without doing anything. Example: the crowd remained passive and did not offer help. 7. Obligations. Definition: things that a person is expected or required to do. Example: parents have obligations to care for their children. 8. Mortal. Definition: able to die, relating to death. Example: the victim was in mortal danger after the accident. 9. Dissolve. Definition: to disappear or come to an end slowly. Example: trust can dissolve when people feel afraid. 10. Opioid. Definition: a strong medicine used to reduce pain. Example: the doctor prescribed an opioid after the surgery. 11. Overdose. Definition: taking too much of a drug or medicine, causing serious harm or death. Example: the man was rushed to the hospital after a drug overdose. 12. Immunity. Definition: protection from punishment, legal action, or harm. Example: the law gave immunity to people who called for help during an overdose. 13. Liability. Definition: legal responsibility for something that happened. Example: the rescuer was worried about liability if the victim was injured further. 14. Vulnerability. Definition: the condition of being open to harm, danger, or attack. Example: children are often in a position of vulnerability. 15. Malice. Definition: a desire to hurt or harm someone. Example: there was no malice behind his actions. 16. Recklessly. Definition: acting without thinking about the possible danger or results. Example: he drove recklessly through the crowded street. 17. Procedures. Definition: official steps or actions that must be followed. Example: the nurse followed the proper medical procedures. 18. Vary. Definition: to be different from one place, person, or situation to another. Example: laws vary from state to state. 19. Jurisdiction. Definition: an area where a particular law or authority has power. Example: the case was handled under the jurisdiction of California law. 20. Neat. Definition: clean, organized, and tidy. Example: her desk was neat and well organized. 21. Orderly. Definition: arranged in a clear, organized way. Example: the student stood in an orderly line. 22. Implied consent. Definition: permission that is assumed because a person cannot clearly give it. Example: The unconscious victim was treated under implied consent. 23. Chaos. Definition: a state of complete confusion and disorder. Example: chaos broke out after the sudden explosion. 24. Intervention. Definition: an action taken to help improve a situation or stop a problem. Example: quick intervention by a passerby saved the child's life. 25. Improvisation. Definition: doing something without planning because a situation changes suddenly. Example: the rescue required some improvisation when the equipment failed. 26. Indefinitely. Definition: for an unknown amount of time, with no clear ending. Example: the meeting was postponed indefinitely.
Comprehension questions. 1. What is the main purpose of Good Samaritan laws? Answer: the main purpose is to encourage people to help others in emergencies by protecting them from legal liability when they act in good faith. 2. Where does the name Good Samaritan come from? Answer: it comes from a Bible story about a Samaritan man who stopped to help an injured stranger when others passed by. 3. Why was the first modern Good Samaritan law introduced in California? Answer: it was introduced because doctors and other people were afraid of being sued if they helped injured strangers during emergencies. 4. What is the bystander effect? Answer: the bystander effect is the tendency of people to avoid helping when others are present, because they expect someone else to act. 5. Why is the Kitty Genovese case still remembered today? Answer: it is remembered because it raised important questions about why people sometimes fail to help others in danger. 6. What happened in the Peng Yu case in China? Answer: Peng Yu helped an elderly woman who had fallen, but she later accused him of causing her injury, leading to a widely discussed court case. 7. Why did the Peng Yu case affect Chinese society so strongly? Answer: many people became afraid that helping strangers could lead to legal problems or financial loss. 8. Who was Wang Yue and why did her story become famous? Answer: Wang Yue was a 2-year-old girl who was hit by vehicles and left without immediate help. Her story sparked debate about public responsibility and compassion. 9. What was the main issue in the Lisa Torty and Alexandra Van Horn case? Answer: the issue was whether a person who rescues someone during an emergency can be held legally responsible if the rescue causes additional injury. 10. What is the difference between a Good Samaritan law and a duty to rescue law? Answer: a Good Samaritan law protects people who choose to help, while a duty to rescue law requires people to provide reasonable assistance or call for help. 11. Why did lawmakers expand Good Samaritan laws during the opioid crisis? Answer: they wanted to encourage people to call emergency services during overdoses without fearing arrest for minor drug offenses. 12. What does implied consent mean in an emergency? Answer: it means the law assumes an unconscious or unresponsive person would want life-saving help. 13. Why is calling 911 usually the first recommended step in an emergency? Answer: it brings professional help, creates an official record, and shows that the rescuer acted in good faith. 14. Why should rescuers stay within their level of training? Answer: because Good Samaritan laws protect reasonable actions, not risky medical procedures performed without proper training. 15. According to the article, what is the deeper purpose of Good Samaritan laws? Answer: their deeper purpose is to reduce fear and encourage people to help one another during emergencies. 16. Do you think people should be legally required to help strangers in danger? Why or why not? Answer: answers will vary. Some people may believe helping should be required as part of social responsibility, while others may believe it should remain a personal choice. 17. How can fear affect people's willingness to help others? Answer: fear of legal trouble. Personal danger or financial loss can cause people to hesitate or avoid helping altogether. 18. What qualities make someone a Good Samaritan? Answer: compassion, courage, responsibility, and a willingness to help others in need. 19. What lesson do you think society should learn from the Good Samaritan law? Answer: society should learn that helping others is important, and that people should not be punished for acting in good faith during emergencies.